You're listening to Death Metal Disco.
So you've been listening to me ramble on for quite some time about this, that, and the other. So allow me to ramble on briefly about how I operate this podcast. There's lots of options for how you want to post and host your podcast and put it out into the world. I did a lot of research on mine, and for me, I decided to go with Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's free. That was a big selling point to me. Free is good. I like free. There's also tools for creation to help you record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer or your tablet or whatever you're using. I find that to be effective. So we got free, we got recording and editing, both big deals because they are. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you. So it can be heard on Spotify, it could be heard on Apple Podcasts, it could be heard on Google Podcasts, and many, many more. That is a huge time saver because I don't have to go to each of those things to upload. So I like that distribution right then and there. And again, it's free. You can make money from your podcast if you're into that kind of thing with no minimum listenership. That could be cool. I think you should try it. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you've been on the fence about making a podcast and the only thing holding you back is how you want to host it or create it or whatever, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's worth it.
Hello, 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 my friends, my friends, my friends, my friends, my friends, my family, my new listeners, my potential future and former lovers. Welcome back to the Death Metal Disco. It is I, James. Thought I might do more with that, but I'm not going to. I don't see a need to, and it would be misleading if I did. Anyway, I'm going to keep this episode super quick. It's going to be pretty short, I think. Keeping it pretty short just because I have kind of a lot to do. I procrastinated a little bit. Could have done this at any point last week, and I didn't. And now it's Sunday night. And yeah, I have the work week coming up. I have to travel this week. So here I am. I'm going to bust this out. This is going to be about my trip last weekend. Most of you who know me or anybody who's listened to this for, the entire time it's been around, every year, my buddy Chris and Jamie and we go to Telluride, Colorado for the Telluride Horror Show, which is a film festival in Telluride, Colorado, which is a beautiful, 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 beautiful town in the mountains in Colorado, southwest Colorado. It started off as just me and Chris going to this, and then Jamie joined us a few years ago. This trip was our 7th trip, if you count 2020, which we didn't actually go. It was virtual. 7th trip. Our first was in 2016, and then this would make it our 7th physical trip. 7th year, I guess. Jamie did not join us this time. He missed out. Really, the movies this year weren't all that great, but or at least not consistently all that great. Every year, there's bound to be some movies that you just don't really vibe with, or you don't think were worth sitting through. And, things like movies and music are very subjective, and everybody's got opinions on things. Some people loved the movies that we saw. Some people didn't love everything. I didn't love everything. The first day, the first 2 movies we saw were pretty similar in nature. And they weren't terrible by any means. I just didn't really care for them very much. Just weren't my jam, but they weren't bad, I guess. I don't know that I would call them horror. I mean, they were horror, but I don't know. They were all right. But I will say the weather this year was probably the best it's ever been in the, 6-7 years that we've gone up, the 6 actual trips that we've made up there. The first time, I think the first year we went, it was pretty good. The leaves had mostly changed, so by the time we got up there, a lot of the trees and stuff had lost their leaves. There wasn't a lot of color still, but there was some. This year, I think it was because the weather was so warm. this summer and still late into the year. It wasn't anything like it had been before. Last year it snowed. This time it was in the 50s in the daytime, and most of the trees still had most of their leaves, and a lot of them had changed. There's lots of yellows and reds and pretty autumn pictures and blah, 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 blah. But the weather was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful, and we get to sit in theaters and watch movies the whole time. So there was that. I mean, it was cool. We walked around and, enjoyed the outside while we could. But I think that actually led to, I don't know if they sold out this year. I know last year they sold out, and I think maybe part of that was just because it was the first year, even though we had to wear masks and everything with the COVID stuff, people were just trying to get out and about. And last year they for sure sold out, and it felt like it. All the theaters were packed pretty much the whole time. Even, the only restrictions we had were vax cards and masks. But this year it seemed like there were a lot of people, but each showing was completely full. Like, we sat in the Sheridan Opera House, we sat in the Nugget Theater, and we had a few screenings at the Palm Theater, which is at the high school, and it's their biggest theater. But none of them felt like I didn't have to sit directly next to a stranger at all, any single movie. So I don't know if they sold. I don't think they sold out, honestly, but if they did, I think because of the way that festival is, people will buy passes, but then not come up and see everything, which is fine. They'll go and hike and do mountain stuff because Telluride's awesome. There's tons of shit to do. So, and even if they don't stay in Telluride, they can go over to Ouray, which is about an hour away. Do Jeep rentals and go Jeeping. I don't know if that's what it's called, or if it's four-wheeling, off-roading, whatever. Like, they do Jeep trails and shit like that. In fact, I read in the news just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that there was I think it was a husband and wife. They fell off a cliff in the Jeep rental. Well, I don't know if it was a Jeep rental, but a Jeep trail in Ouray. So that's kind of terrifying, but, hopefully it was pretty while they fell to their death, I guess. So anyway, Telluride, fucking awesome. Jamie didn't join us this year, and that was kind of a bummer, but, whatever. His loss, in my opinion. Don't get to see the guy all that often, and he couldn't get his schedule changed for work or whatever. He told us last year he probably wasn't going to come back, so it is what it is. His brother's got drama going on, and it would have been nice to hang out with the three of us again, but, life goes on, and it was good just to hang out with Chris. It was actually a pretty pleasant time, so that was nice. The weather was beautiful, like I said, and the movies, even though they weren't all that great for the most part, I didn't hate anything we saw. Maybe I did. I don't know. I didn't make note of the ones that I hated, I don't think. So real quick, I have 5 of the features that we saw that I'm just going to run through real quick. These are the ones that I thought were noteworthy, or that I actually liked a lot, in no particular order. Like I said, I'm keeping this episode super quick. Well, relatively quick. Theoretically. So the first one I'll talk about is called Something in the Dirt. And this one I liked, even though I won't give any spoilers away. It really felt like it left me wanting more, and not more because it was so good that I just want more of that movie. It felt incomplete, and like at some point they just needed to wrap up the movie, and they did, and didn't really. Maybe they ran out of money. I don't know, but it's by Benson and. Stand by, I have this on my phone. I didn't put it on my stupid outline like a smart person would have. Benson and Moorhead. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They're a couple guys who've made a few movies, like, of course, now I've changed my phone around. The Endless Spring, Synchronic. I haven't seen Synchronic and I haven't seen Spring, but I heard Spring is awesome. Synchronic, maybe I did see Synchronic. That came out a couple years ago. I'd have to look and see what the fuck it's about. Nope, I didn't see Synchronic. I didn't see Spring either, but I heard Spring was good. I think Spring was their first one, but the first one I saw from them, actually the first one that I saw was Resolution, which was their first one. And then in 2017, they came out with The Endless, which actually ties to Resolution. And allegedly Spring ties to that too, but I haven't seen Spring, so I don't know. There were some ties from Something in the Dirt to The Endless and Resolution. The characters are different. Some throwbacks, callbacks to those two were there. I haven't seen either of those two in a long time, but things I did recognize from those two did show up. Not really a horror movie, though, but they do good work. And I think that's why Telluride keeps showing their stuff. The Endless and Resolution both played there, I believe. Or maybe I don't remember where the hell I saw Resolution. I think I saw Resolution at Mile High Horror Film Festival, because it's old enough that that's probably where I would have saw that. But I mean, they make good movies, and a lot of times they act, and this one they acted in it too. And I think they acted in the other ones, but I can't remember. But they write good stories, and the stories are very intriguing and captivating. And this one was no slouch. Like, I was very intrigued about it the whole time. But then it just kind of, I don't know. It's like it just stopped. Like, you're left with a lot of questions about the things they talked about. And if you've seen any of their other movies, they're kind of more sci-fi, kind of more supernatural almost, except not really. I wouldn't call them horror by any stretch of the imagination. Resolution was probably the closest one. The Endless wasn't too far out of the horror spectrum, but definitely more of a sci-fi vibe than anything. But anyway, Something in the Dirt, worth checking out if you've seen The Endless or Resolution. I recommend them just because if you've seen those, you probably liked them, and I liked them. Worth checking out. Spring, I need to watch. It's been on my list forever. And Synchronic, I don't remember hearing one way or the other about it. But the next one is called Megalomaniac. And this one was from either Germany or Austria. I want to say Austria. And this one was a gut-wrencher. It is... I won't call it my favorite, because that would imply that, I really, 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 enjoyed it. I will say that it might have been one of the best ones in the festival this year. It was brutal. It was very, very, very dark. Oh, yes. The MC said, if you like, quote unquote, mean-spirited horror movies, then you'll like this one. And by mean-spirited, he's talking about like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I do like. I can't remember what other movies he referenced as being gut-wrenching. This is one of them. There's another movie from Germany that we saw at the Overlook. I want to say it was the first year we went to the Overlook, when it was actually up at the Timberline Lodge. And, oh yeah, it's called Nothing Bad Can Happen. That movie was fucking brutal. I have zero desire to watch it again. It was really, really good, but in the most, man, that made me feel bad about life and everything kind of way that you can imagine. It was really well done, I guess is how I'll say it. Megalomaniac is no exception to that. Megalomaniac was it was very, very violent. And the host MC guy for Telluride, he even prefaced it with a bit of a trigger warning for people, because it does have a couple instances of some pretty graphic and pretty violent sexual assault in it. And it was, watching sexual assaults in a movie, a horror movie, is never easy or fun. But there's always degrees of how bad it is. And yeah, this was pretty violent. It was definitely violent as fuck. It wasn't super graphic. Like I've seen some movies, where they have incredibly graphic sexual assault scenes, and this one was brutal and graphic, but it wasn't what it could have been, thankfully. And when you're watching scenes like that and you look around at other people watching the movie at the same time and people are covering their faces, and these are people who love horror films, and may be pretty desensitized to that kind of brutality, but people are covering their faces, or gasping, just completely guffawed about what they're seeing. Yeah, there was some of that. So, Megalomaniac, while the story was interesting, very, very interesting, and just dark, with an ending that was insanely brutal. I would say it's, as far as horror movies go, it was the best one there. For tried and true, what the fuck? Like, just brutal movie watching. Mean-spirited when Mike, the host MC guy, called it mean-spirited. He was not wrong. Like, I gravitate more towards horror comedy because comedy is my favorite genre. I like to laugh, and horror is close. And when the two come together and they come together well, that's my happy spot. This one had no humor. Had a lot of sadness for sure, and it was super dark. But it was probably one of. I think it was the one that accomplished the storytelling the way it needed to. Like, it didn't leave any crazy plot holes, at least in my opinion. It didn't leave me guessing about really what had happened. A lot about why. There were some things in there that, weren't explained at all, or very well at least. But even then, the overall story made sense. So that's why I'm including it. It was fucking brutal. I will probably never watch it again, just because I don't need to see that kind of brutality. Like, it was rough, but it was good in the sense that it made me feel things like I don't ever want to watch it again. So yeah, Megalomaniac I think it was Austria. The next one is probably my favorite from the ones we saw, and it's called The Offering. I don't have the plot description with me, but it's kind of like the story of La Llorona. And they even talk about it at the beginning, how every culture has similar stories about spirits and whatnot that require a life for a life, or firstborn children, this, that, and the other. This is the Jewish version of it. And Jewish horror, I can't remember what other movies I've seen that were Jewish, specifically Jewish horror. I know I've seen one or two in the last couple of years that were really good. And not only were just really good just because of the stories they told, but they actually, show, like, this was Hasidic Jews. They had some Hasidic Jews that were involved in it, and it was part of their lore. But this one was also like the story of the La Llorona with meets Autopsy of Jane Doe, because the main family in this owned a mortuary. So they had it was like a rabbi or whatever had his own little funeral parlor in his basement of his house, and some other shit, and it had some good jump scares, but the story was good. The acting was fantastic. Like, between that and Megalomaniac, I think the acting was pretty fucking top notch between those two movies. Something in the Dirt, the acting was pretty good too. But I think The Offering, everybody that was in The Offering they brought their A game for it, and like, it was crazy. Some of the specific things they show in The Offering, like, if you're not super familiar with Jewish traditions, you don't really know. I know I've read up on a bunch of stuff like sitting Shiva and various other things, and there was stuff that they did when there was a scene where they're setting up for sitting Shiva for one of the family members that died, and they tore like the son of the father's shirt, and some other stuff. And I've read before what all that means, and I need to go back and look it up because it's, piqued my curiosity again. But they had some attention to detail with The Offering. I really, really liked it. It's probably my favorite serious movie from the festival. It was just really well done. Good story, really, really good acting, some good scares, some creepiness, some decent humor. There was some good humor in it, which was always nice. So The Offering, highly recommend that. The first movie we saw that I actually liked was the third movie we actually saw on the first night of the festival, so Friday, because we missed the first two movies on Thursday. But that was called The Harbinger. And The Harbinger, I don't know, I kind of had mixed feelings about it. Like, plot-wise, it's set during COVID lockdowns, and it's set in New York City. And, New York City was hit hugely with COVID stuff, and people dying left and right, all this other stuff. So, like, lockdown protocols, social distancing, just the general weirdness of the lockdown period. I don't know if that's when they actually made this movie, but that's when it takes place. And when COVID first happened and lockdowns were happening and all that good stuff, what became a popular image to distribute around the world was the plague doctor. And this movie kind of used that and went with the Harbinger as being a demon type of creature, which could really inhabit the image of anything. But because the plague doctor was a thing, it took a similar image, not necessarily of the plague doctor, but of a thing that if you saw, you would be like, oh, that's the fucking plague doctor. But I liked it. I thought the story was really good. There were some things in it that could have been explained better. It wasn't really... It had some scary parts. Definitely some good jump scares in there. Kind of had like an Inception vibe to it in a couple parts because they're talking about how people who had been blessed, as it were, by visions of the Harbinger, visits of the Harbinger, would be stuck in a dream and not be able to come out of the dream. So it kind of had a vibe like Inception. And are we in a dream? Are we not in a dream? What's reality? What's not reality? And that's kind of what I liked. Some of that stuff kind of got confusing. I will probably watch that one again. Maybe see if I can clean up some of what I remember from it. But I thought that one was pretty good. The acting was good. The humor was good. The acting was pretty good for the most part. Some of the more serious parts of it, that's usually where the acting falls apart. And it was more or less pretty good. But I recommend it. Check it out, The Harbinger. No big names were in that, but, it was cool. And then the last one to talk about was called Christmas, Bloody Christmas. And this is a horror, action, comedy, stoner movie. So think like, what's a good way to describe this one? Think Jingle All the Way meets... Okay, so think the Santa Claus meets American Ultra meets the Terminator meets Pineapple Express. That is what Christmas, Bloody Christmas reminded me of. It's written and directed by a guy named Joe Begos, not Joe Bezos, or I think it's Joe Begos. I hope I have that right. Yeah, Joe Begos. He's written and directed a few movies. The first one I saw was called Bliss, and that one was okay as a vampire movie. Had its moments. Visually, it was pretty cool, but the story had some huge flaws, in my opinion, as being a big vampire movie fan. Not my favorite, but it wasn't bad. And the girl that was in it was beautiful. But then he had VFW, which came out in like 2019 or 2020. And that one was really cool. That one was fun. Had some 80s action heroes in it, defending their local VFW against a plague of punk rock. I don't know what they were called. They weren't zombies, but they might as well have been. And that one was really fun. But this one is basically the story of how some basically robots that were originally built for the military had been decommissioned from the military and sent around to be Santa Clauses. And, all good technology comes with gaping flaws where they flip the switch and then shit goes haywire. And basically, it's the Terminator dressed up in a Santa Claus suit. So it was way over the top and hilarious. Quick 87 minutes or something like that is what he said. And very entertaining. A little bit dumb. It's not... If you're a super film connoisseur and you're like, oh, my horror movies have to be super serious and they have to be, whatever, you're probably going to be let down. But he filmed it in 16 millimeter, which, cool. Watching it, I would never have guessed that or probably cared because I'm not a film snob. But, I mean, to each their own. He has fun making it. He makes it with his friends and all that. And he does really good work. He was there at the festival and somebody asked him about the color choices for, it takes place kind of in a record store. Not too dissimilar from Empire Records. Totally different color schemes. But somebody asked him about the decor in that place. And he said, oh yeah, when we found that place, it was a blank slate. And then they went in there and decorated it. And when they decorated it, if you'd seen VFW or Bliss, a lot of the color schemes, the neon color schemes that he uses are prevalent in both of those. There's like the neon blues, neon green, neon pinks, purples. They have those similarities between those films, and that was obvious in this one too. So somebody asked him about that, and he says that's how his apartment is decorated, and he just really liked that vibe, and so that's what they went with. And I think it lends a certain... it lends a certain something to it. Like, it was a fun movie. Ridiculous, but it was fun and worth checking out. It's, a comedy, horror, Christmas action movie. So, don't see those every day. So those were the my top 5 from the top 5 features from the festival. There was a 6th one called... Oh, what the hell was it called? The Crying of a Fawn or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, but it was pretty good too. It kind of went on a little longer than it needed to, but it had some cool like Greek mythology shit going on in it, and it got a little carried away with itself, but it started off really good with some super dark humor. The girl that's in it, I can't remember her name, and I don't have it on my outline. She was really great, and the guy that's in it, he plays a delightfully creepy serial killer. The hell was it called? It was called A Wounded Fawn, and that one was cool. It was fun. Kind of had like a Ted Bundy vibe meets the art industry, like the fine arts industry, and then with some Greek mythology shit that went crazy. Yeah, but I like that one. It was good. So those are the 5 plus the honorable mention for A Wounded Fawn. Sometimes if we don't, Chris really likes to see the features, and he does all the scheduling for it, but sometimes we'll catch the shorts blocks, some of them. We did see 2 of the shorts blocks. We saw the dark humor shorts, and then we saw, I guess it was called the Bumps in the Night shorts block. So the dark humors and the Bumps in the Night. And the dark humors one is usually very good because, like I said, I'm a horror comedy guy. And this was, I think there were 7 or 8 short films in this block, and all of them were good. There wasn't any of them in there that I hated or thought was a waste of, 5-10 minutes or anything like that. The 2 I absolutely loved. One was called The Coupon, and the other was called Good Boy. And Good Boy was the first in the shorts block, the dark humor shorts block, and it's about a girl who goes over to a couple's house to babysit their dog, and their dog's like a little toy Pomeranian. Pretty much the most adorable, tiny little dog ever, who also happens to be the devil. Basically like the little rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Just complete evil. And that shit was fucking hilarious. It was maybe 5 minutes long, maybe a little bit longer than that. And holy fuck, that shit was hysterical. So if you ever get a chance to look for Good Boy short film, I don't even know how you'll find it. Maybe on YouTube. That shit was entertaining as fuck, and I very highly recommend that. The one that I liked the absolute most out of the block, though, was called The Coupon. And The Coupon is about a guy celebrating his birthday, and his wife gives him a little coupon book with, things that he can redeem. Like, she gives him a coupon for to clean his man cave, a coupon to make him dinner, I think it was, and then a coupon for like a blowjob. And it gets fucking bananas after that first day. But that shit was hysterical. A little predictable. And that one was a little bit longer. It's probably about 10 minutes-ish, 10, 12 minutes, something like that. But that one, man, that one had me in tears. It was so funny. And with dark humor, it's not really horror comedy. There was some shit in there like, damn, that's crazy. And if you think about some of these things in more detail, you're like, that's terrifying. But yeah, The Coupon. If you follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, I will find these shorts and I will try to post them whenever I can find them. That's the problem with the short films, is a lot of times they're hard to find. So keep your eyes open for those, and any of those features, look out for those too. I do recommend seeing any of those ones I talked about. They're pretty good. Worth a watch, at least if you're a fan of independent horror movies. Like, genre horror, as they say, is pretty far reaching. So not everything horror movie is a slasher film. Like, I talked to some of the people I used to work with in dispatch, and like, I love horror movies. And they, when they think horror movies, they're hoping that they're going to get jump scared every 2 minutes. And that's ridiculous. But yeah, so that was our trip to Telluride. Oh yeah, and we went to the pulled pork. They do a pig roast thing on the Saturdays there for all the pass holders. It's included there, and probably some of the best pulled pork sandwiches I've ever had outside of Memphis. When I worked in Memphis a whole bunch in 2017, I kind of sort of lived off of pulled pork sandwiches and ribs, and they were amazing. But these pulled pork sandwiches they do at this pig roast during the Telluride film or horror show, pretty fucking delicious. They also do an ice cream social on Friday, and for that this year they actually were able to secure none other than Clint Howard, the legend Clint Howard. Ron Howard, the director, is his brother. But yeah, the ice cream man himself came and served ice cream at the ice cream social, and then they did a screening of the ice cream man with an interview with him, and he was there with his wife. I didn't get any ice cream, but Chris did. There was kind of chaos at the table, and I just trying to be a little bit better about what I eat and all that, and I just didn't want to stand around all those people and try and get some fucking ice cream while everybody was trying to take pictures, and the poor guy was just trying to serve some damn ice cream. But yeah, and we didn't see the ice cream man. We ended up seeing some other movie, and that's fine because I'm sure it would have been a packed theater for sure. But yeah, good times at Telluride. 7-hour drive to get myself a delicious pulled pork sandwich. So if you've never been to Telluride Horror Show, it's worth a trip. Lodging is typically kind of expensive just because Telluride is pricey, but and food. They have a grocery store up there, but restaurants and shit can get pretty damn expensive pretty quick. So Airbnb might be the way to go. We haven't done that yet. We stayed at a hostel just about 15 minutes outside of Telluride before you actually get into Telluride. Pretty cool little hostel, except they gave us bunk beds. And we're too fucking fat to work the top bunk, so we popped the mattress out of that and put it on the floor. Yeah, that is what it is. So anyway, thanks for listening to me blabber on about some movies and festivals and shit like that. I'm going to wrap this episode up. I love you all, and I will hopefully have another episode about something for you next week. Yeah. So be safe. I love you all. Take care of yourselves and each other. Oh shit, that's Jerry Springer. Fuck, I did it again. Anyway, just do that. That's good advice. I can't slight the guy for that. So, yeah. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Death Metal Disco.